Welcome again to another Curator's Chat here at the Behringer-Crawford Museum. My name is Jason French, Curator of Collections. You've not seen us in a Curator's Chat in a while, and we've been taking a little break as we've been working on some other projects. But today we've got something very special for you. I'm here with Joanne and Melinda Minnie, and we are going to talk about a Northern Kentucky veteran, a Kenton County veteran, and a gentleman who really needs to be remembered, General Jesse Auton. Now, these two wonderful ladies are family, right?
Yes, sir. Cousins.
So, you're cousins. So, can you tell us the story of Jesse Auton? Because he is really a pretty special guy, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. He lived on Martinview-Fitchburg Road. He was your typical country boy. He went to a one-room school called Oak Grove School. He moved on to Pioneer High School, of which he started growing personally then. He was very friendly. He had his goals, and he was the type of person who met his goals. And he even ended out being the valedictorian of his class before he moved on to Georgetown College, where he also did very well, and he was even he captained the debate team there, and he got a Bachelor of Arts degree in education, and that's why he came back to Pioneer. He loved Pioneer. He was assistant principal there and a teacher and the girls' basketball coach. While he was in those positions, every moment he could get, he would go to Lunken Airport in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he was taking flight lessons. And the more he did that, the more he loved it, and the more he realized that's what he wanted to make his life about. That was his military career beginning.
So he started out at Pioneer.
Correct.
And he became a principal at Pioneer because he was a good student, went on to college.
Yeah.
And then while he was assistant principal, he was learning to fly.
Right.
Because that's, it's the early 20th century. Flight is something fairly new.
Right.
It's the 1920s, 30s. And he's learned. That's amazing. That's really cool. So from there, he joins the Army Air Corps. Is that correct? So when he was in service, what did he do? And I said he's a general, right? So he must have moved up.
Brigadier General.
Brigadier General. Did he? So he signed in maybe as an officer first. Didn't go completely through enlistment.
After flight school, he was a second lieutenant. So he started pretty much from the bottom.
Why do we've got treasures here that are related to his life, and you've brought these all in to share with us. So here, this may be a little later in his career. This is a manual he wrote.
Oh yeah,
that's a flight manual he wrote when he was in San Francisco. He wrote the manual for the fighters to teach them the procedures, what to do for the base commanders as well as the fighter commanders.
So this is the manual for fighter squadrons, and this was written in 1943.
43, I think it's
so that's really
a
something.
big deal.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's a big deal. So he was pretty high ranking. Who else? As a brigadier general, he was around guys like Eisenhower.
Oh, you bet. Yeah.
They
were his good friends.
We have a photo here. This is Jesse Auton over here, and this is Dwight D. Eisenhower. He was his aide and pilot for a while, 1933 to 1945. They worked on the Operation D-Day.
Okay, so they worked on D-Day, and then over here is Doolittle.
This one is Carl Spaatz, and this one's Jimmy Doolittle right here.
And Jimmy Doolittle was the Doolittle raid and bombing of Tokyo. So Jesse Auton from Kenton County in northern Kentucky knew all of those guys and was just as important to the war effort in the Second World War as a guy like Jimmy Doolittle or an Eisenhower. He was a peer of those gentlemen. And that's just amazing to me because we don't always think about veterans that are near us being at that level of like heroism and just so important to the success of the Second World War. His planning, his fighter manuals, that's really something. So this is his uniform, right?
Yeah.
that's great. So what happened to him after the war? He stayed in the Air Corps.
Yes, he stayed in because he was he was on active duty when he was killed.
Okay, so he did die in a crash.
A plane crash.
Okay, so but that was when was that?
The plane crash was 30th of March, 1952.
So he died unfortunately died in a plane crash in 1952.
He was piloting a B-29, and as on approach coming into Offutt Field, had an engine went out, and they said that it went into a hill and crashed. It killed him and his aide, but there was 3 other folks that were not killed. They were injured, but not seriously. But
right.
It did kill him.
So, but if they went into an embankment and he was a pilot,
right? They would
and probably the co-pilot,
exactly.
he and the co-pilot
right.
died, but the other in the B-29s they were the big boys. Those were the, that was wasn't it a B-29? The Enola Gay is a B-29.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was.
So they were big bombers that he was piloting. And he presumably piloted a lot of different planes throughout his career. If he was writing a manual for fighter planes, and then he dies piloting a bomber, he could fly anything.
Right.
That's really an impressive career. Now he also was around. When he started, he was in the Army Air Corps. By 1952, it was the Air Force. So he was around in that transition and was probably significant, I would assume, especially at that rank and with the people in his sphere. I could say that he was part of that discussion, creating an Air Force out of the Army. That's really great. We have so many amazing veteran stories here in Northern Kentucky, and multiple conflicts, multiple wars. There's just so many heroes that come out of our community, but I don't know that there's too many generals.
I don't think so.
I don't know that there's too many brigadier generals,
I don't think
so. And that's really something, and you don't always think about that. Not at least in the 20th century and in kind of the modern era. Veteran stories are so special. They're people who've sacrificed for our country, who've been part of the protection and the building of this great nation, and I always am envious of it. As viewers of Curator's Chats know, I don't see well, so I can never serve. So I love the stories, and it's such a human story. Learning about people who served our country. Thank you both for bringing this story. Veterans Day is a special time. It's a time that we set aside to specifically honor our veterans, though, I'm of the opinion we should honor our veterans all the time. And it's such a time to really think and reflect about not just the veterans that have passed, but our living veterans. So that's something that I thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for bringing this collection. And it's just exciting to me to hear these wonderful stories from veterans and about veterans that were right here in our community. I hope you've all enjoyed this Curator's Chat. Feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon on our next Curator's Chat.